And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Tahiti, which is a game from Minion Games, who have brought you games such as Manhattan Project and the Kingdom of Solomon before, and this is their latest release. Not really along the same lines. This one is more of an introductory pick up and deliver game that gives a little bit of an action modification thing as you go through the game. The more you pick up, the less you'll be able to do. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what you get inside the box and how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and get my final opinions on it. So here you can see the components for Tahiti set up for a two-player game. Now this center tile could flip over, and you would rearrange these outer tiles for a four-player game. Three-player would be the same, but this is the setup for two players. In addition, you can see that there are three tiles here that are going to be secret objective tiles that you get at the beginning of the game. Each player will get one, and it tells you what type of goods you're trying to collect the most of. So pink and green for this one, or if you were to get a different one, it could be green and yellow. You get the idea, but each player will get one of these, and there are different ones for a four-player game that you would dole out. Now, the game is set up, and you can see there are goods on these individual islands. There's brown and green and yellow and pink, and there's also a white good that you can't get from islands, but you can get from doing an action called fishing. You'll also see this large pawn here, and this is a goddess of the islands. She's like the harvest god or the bounty god or something. But anyhow, whoever's going first is going to, at the beginning of each of their turns, or whoever goes on their turn, is going to move this pawn if they want to. If it's not, against the edge of the islands, they have to move it. But if it is against the edge of the islands, they don't have to move it. After you've either moved it or not, you get to place an island out. And when you place an island out, you have to place it adjacent to this goddess. So it'll have to go either here or here because it has to touch at least two tiles. So you would flip it over, and you would place it how you wanted. Now you'll see that there's these coral reefs on here. These are going to have effects on movement. They don't slow it down, but they'll make it more dangerous to move across them. So if you want to go to this island, maybe you'll position it in a way so you don't have to cross that coral reef when you get there. After you've placed your island, and this will only happen until all of the islands are gone. Once all of the islands are gone, she will come off of the board, and it'll change the game somewhat. But after you've placed your island, you're going to pull some cubes out of this area. Now, while she's out, you're going to pull out 3 cubes. Later in the game, you'll only pull out 2 cubes once she's gone, which will, kind of advance the end of the game. But you're going to pull out cubes, and you'll see I got 2 pink and a brown. And I'm going to see if there's anywhere on the board that I can fit these. Well, pink and brown actually both go on this island, and the other pink will obviously go back into the bag. After I've seeded the island, I'm going to move on to what's called the action phase. And you're going to get a number of actions based on how many of these little rowers are uncovered in your canoe. You'll see right now I have 4 uncovered rowers, 1 that can't be covered, 3 uncovered ones, and then 2 spaces where I can store things without having to cover a guy. The number of uncovered rowers is going to determine how many actions I get to take. So right now, 4. Actions can be various different things. One action would be moving your canoe from one place to another. That is going to cost you nothing. Or, well, it costs you 1 action, but nothing more. And you can take that as many times as you want, moving around. You can, go from island to island. The next option is that you can move somewhere, and you can pick up a good. Now, if you move across these reefs, they have no effect unless you're carrying goods. If you are carrying goods, for each reef you go across, you're going to have to pull a cube from this bag. And if you pull these cubes, you'll see I pulled a pink and a yellow. If I were to be carrying any pink or yellow on my canoe, I would lose 1 of each that I was carrying, and they would go back into the bag. So crossing these reefs is a bad idea if you have a lot of different goods, or if you have, an attachment to your goods, you don't want to lose them, which you often will. Anyhow, moving is one possible action. Picking up a cube from an island is another action. And that just takes 1 action. You pick it up and you place it on one of the spots on your board. I would place it on an empty one first, but later, if I want to pick up more goods, I'm going to have to start covering my guys, which will lower the number of actions I have immediately. Now, when you pick up goods, you have 2 choices. You can either pick up goods that are all different, meaning I could have a brown, a yellow, a pink, a green, and a white, or they have to be all the same, meaning I have all brown. So I could now move over to here and pick up this brown, or I could pick up that yellow, but I would have to pick up different colored goods at that point. So you get 3 actions. 1 could be moving. Well, actually, you get 4 actions starting out. 1 could be moving. You could pick up a good. You could pick up another good. An option you have is anywhere that you want, you can do what's called fishing. And when you fish, you're going to draw cubes from the bag. And when you draw cubes from the bag, you're going to draw 2 each time you fish, and you're looking for white cubes. If you pull out a white cube, you get to keep it, and that's going to go on your canoe. If you don't pull out a white cube, you can set those cubes aside, draw another 2 cubes, And then, if you get them, you get to keep the white one. And you can keep doing this as long as you want, always leaving the cubes that you draw out in order to try and get more fish. Remember, if you already have one fish, you can only carry fish at that point, or carry one cube of each different color. The last option you have is when you move back to the center island, using your actions, you can deliver all of the goods that are on your board, and they would slide down into the appropriately colored track in order to give you points for the end of the game. Anyhow, after you've taken your actions, be it 2, 3, 4, however many of these rowers you have uncovered, you're going to go to the end of the turn. And at the end of the turn, if this idol is still out, nothing's going to happen. But eventually, as you place all of these tiles out, you're going to deplete the islands, and she's going to come off of the board. And this changes a couple of things. One, whenever you draw tiles from here, or cubes from here, to add to the island after you've placed a tile, you're going to only draw 2 instead of 3, so they're going to come out a little bit slower. 2, at the end of each round, if you have an island that doesn't have any goods on it, you're going to place one of these depletion tokens on them. You'll see we have a stack of them here. And these are going to come out. You get to choose which island at the end of your turn if there's multiple that don't have any goods on them. And you're going to flip it over. And this is a depleted island, which means goods can never be added to it again. Now, there are a couple of different types of depleted islands, or depletion tokens. You'll see there's this one, which just means nothing can be added. And then you have this fishing one, which can go out on an island instead that's depleted. And now, anytime you fish here, you're going to draw 3 cubes instead of the 2 cubes that you would normally draw. And that's basically how this works. And you're going to keep doing this until there's only 4 islands that don't have depletion tokens left on them, at which point the game will end at the end of the round, everybody getting their equal number of turns. Now, the ways you score points here, you'll look at your little track, and you'll see that you score points for getting many of these things here. So you'll see for each of the goods you get, you're going to get the first uncovered one. So if I were to get 5 yellows, I'd get 6 points. Same thing for all these other ones. 4, or if I were to get 3 of these fish, or all the way up to the 3 on this fish thing, I'd get 4 points. The more you get, the more points you're going to get. In addition, you're going to get bonuses for getting complete sets. So you'll see here, if I were to have a yellow, a brown, a white, a green, and a pink, I would get 1 bonus point. If I had sets all the way up to, 6 sets, I'd get 11 points. The whites, if you don't get them, since all you have to do is fish for them, you lose points if you have no whites. In addition, at the end of the game, whoever has the most of their respective tiles, so for example, if I were going for yellow and pink, if I had both the most in yellow and pink, I'd get 5 points for each. If I was tied, if I was second, I'd get 3 points for each, and if I was last, I wouldn't get any points. But basically, after you've gone through, you've put all the islands out, you've moved around taking actions and depleted all of the islands, whoever has the most points by collecting the most goods, the most sets of goods, and the most of their secret types of goods will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Tahiti, a pretty simple little game, one that I don't think will probably be staying in my collection, but that's not because it's not a good game, and it's not because I don't like it, but more because it just doesn't cater to my level of gaming, the level that I often find myself playing at, which tends to be heavier games, although with many of the same mechanics, which I think is probably the shining point of Tahiti. It takes that pick up and deliver mechanic that you're going to see in a lot of the heavier games, train games and stuff like that, and utilizes it in a way that's going to be accessible to newer gamers, accessible to children, and just all around a good way to learn how that works. I like the way that picking up goods kind of bogs you down a little bit, makes it harder to move, makes it harder to take stuff back, but may provide a bigger reward when you do so. So there's a lot of incentive to try and balance up picking up more goods with delivering them back and getting the best route to pick up the best goods for your score. So with that said, like I said, probably not a game that will stay in my collection, not a game that's going to be in my top games, but one that I can recommend to gamers who like shorter or lighter fare, or who have kids that they'd like to play with, or who just want to learn the mechanic of pick up and deliver without having to get into a very deep or complex rule set.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.